Hello there, and welcome to this short video on ionizing radiation. This is an area of physics that I find a lot of students struggle to understand, so I thought I'd take just a couple of minutes to explain what we mean by ionizing radiation and then how this is linked to something called penetration. So, put simply, when we talk about alpha, beta, and gamma radiation, they're all examples of what we call ionizing radiation. Now, there are other examples as well. A good example would be X-rays, which is also ionizing. So it's not just alpha, beta, and gamma that fall into this category. There are others too. Now, what does ionizing mean? Well, the clue is really in the name. Let's imagine we have an air molecule here, and it is being struck by the particle in green, which is something which does ionizing radiation. So this could be an alpha particle, for example. Now, what happens when the alpha particle collides with the air molecule is that the alpha particle might move off after the collision. However, it will also knock out something, and that something is an electron. What this means is that the air molecule has essentially become an air ion and an electron. So we've got a positive ion which has lost an electron. Now, each time that this happens, every time that a collision happens, the ionizing radiation particle, so the alpha particle, will lose energy and it will start to slow down. So eventually, after a period of time, the alpha particle will be sort of stopped in its tracks. Now, we'll go on to talk about penetration in a second. We just could take a second to think about why this is important. Well, ionizing radiation means that we're causing cells to break down. And this is exactly what happens in the formation of cancerous tumors. So what we find is if you were exposed to too much ionizing radiation, it can cause your cells to break down. They then regrow, reform into cancerous tumors. So ionizing is not necessarily a good thing for our bodies. Okay, let's have a look at another effect of ionization. You may be familiar with this picture, you may not. When we take alpha, beta, and gamma, and we fire them at certain materials, then we find that they pass through certain materials depending on the type. So alpha is stopped by paper, beta is stopped by a couple of millimeters of aluminium, and gamma, well, really isn't really stopped by anything. You have to put it through a few centimeters of lead to really bring down its strength. And remember, these are all ionizing radiation, but what we're noticing is that alpha has low penetration and gamma has high penetration. And why is this? Well, alpha has got a high mass and a high charge. And what that means is it will have a lot of collisions. Remember, we discussed in the previous slide that every time a collision happens, ionization occurs. Okay, and so that means that our alpha source is very ionized. As a result, it loses its energy very, very quickly and slows down very quickly. Alpha is strongly ionizing. That's all due to that high mass and that high charge. Gamma, on the other hand, is very weakly ionizing because it has essentially zero mass and zero charge. There will be very few interactions with the particles that it's passing through, therefore very little ionization, and therefore it takes a long time for it to lose its energy and effectively be slowed down. Beta is in the middle, has a kind of moderate mass and a charge which is between the two, and so therefore will be stopped by a material somewhere in between lead, and that's why we have aluminium there as well. Okay, so we've seen there we mean by ionization and how that links to penetration. As ever, if you've got any questions to ask.